muted. Good evening, everybody. I'm going to double check this, make sure I am all set on my end, and I am. I'm going to give it a second for you guys to get in here so that we can dig into this topic tonight. So I'll give it a second for you guys to join. Make sure you say hi when you come in the room. That way I can see you, know that you're there, and that everything is working well, and I can see comments and all of that. I will tell you that if you have children, grandchildren that are minorities and they are in school systems, this is going to be a broadcast that you do not want to miss. Hey, Melanie, what's up? What's up, Jamie? Hey, bro, what's up, Doug? And it's really good information. Hey, Annetta, how are you? So as you all know, last week, I had the opportunity to interview Jessica Day and her son, Jaden, in reference to a racial incident that happened in Hawkins County at Surgoinsville Middle School. Hey, what's up, Ethan? And tonight, I'm going to be doing a more in-depth look at racial disparities in discipline across school systems, both on a state level and on a national level. Hey, what's up, Teresa? And I will tell you this, on Thursday, I will be joined by a second family and a second student in Hawkins County that has experienced some unbelievable racial targeting, racial harassment that's taking place in the school system. And so I think it's really important to point out that these are students, these are kids. I'm dealing with their parents first and foremost. I am talking to the kids as well. And, you know, here's what I think is so incredible about the space that we're in is some of the things that these kids are saying to me are things that I can relate to growing up as a biracial kid in Bristol, and you know, things that we encountered in the school system 40 years ago, you know, and it is disheartening to see that these things are still happening in the school system. And what's worse is to see educators and administrators still so inadequate in their ability to address the issues. And so I have spoken with, like I said, 2 moms at this point, actually 3. And the second mom and her son will be on with me, maybe dad too, I'm not sure, on Thursday at 8:00. So that is going to be an interview that you do not want to miss. Before I dive right into the information and to the data, you see this little banner that's across here. If you find my broadcast valuable, if you would like to see the talk show that we are putting together come to fruition, you can donate to support. If you're a business and you want to become a sponsor, you can do that as well. You simply go to thedannycookshow.com. You can read more about it. There's even a very transparent production budget, so you can see what the funds are going for. It's being put together by Encore Film Studios. Encore Performances is the name of the actual like I guess production piece of it, and that's going to be happening. So I do need your support to do that. So if you tune in regularly and if you follow me, if I have advocated for you, if you want me to be able to advocate on a larger scale, on a larger platform, please consider doing that. Okay, now that part is over, and we're going to get down to the brass tacks, right? As you will. You don't believe the administrators want things to change. Doug, I don't know if that's actually the right thing to say, because I think it's a combination. So like, I can't just say in a blanket statement, I don't think these administrators want things to change, because I don't know them, right? I don't know their hearts. What I do know is that confronting your own bias is daunting for anyone. To confront any implicit bias that you may have, to confront any prejudice you may have, can make you feel like, oh my God, I'm a bad person, right? So that can be challenging. Here's the thing though, when you are in education, just like if you're in healthcare, just like if you're a public servant, or just like if you're in law enforcement, it is your responsibility to explore yourself and look for those things and challenge those things, because in this case, children are depending on it. Now, I'm going to ask you guys a question. Have you all seen a video that went viral about 2 weeks ago where two teenagers were in an altercation in a mall. A physical fight broke out, and it was broken up by police officers, and it has sparked some serious outrage. Does anyone know the video that I'm referring to? If you could just comment in the comments and let me know if you have seen this video and if you are not aware of it, because I'm going to start off with this video. Robin, you did? Great. Perfect. Anybody else see the video that I'm talking about? Because it, for me, right, great. See, my folks be watching it. Candy hasn't seen it? Okay. So the reason why I want to talk about this is because I think it gives us a glimpse into what we talk about when we talk about implicit bias, that bias that is subconscious that we may not even recognize is there. Okay. So, you know, people get very defensive when you point out to them that something they do or say is racist, right? They get very defensive. I'm not racist. I'm not racist. But listen, folks, there are implicit biases that we all have and that show up when we just spontaneously react. When we instinctively react to something, then you don't have time to make a calculated decision. You're literally just going off your instinct. Okay. So I'm going to play this video for you. And what you're going to see is you're going to see some students. And I did a little bit of reading on this. And so let me explain the situation. There's a white boy by the name of Joey who is arguing with a black boy named Kai. Now, what had happened prior to this, according to the article, and this article, Joey agrees this is what happened, and Kai agrees this is what happened. So what happened is Joey was having an argument with a 7th grader. Joey is in high school. Okay, Joey is in high school, and so Kai, because Kai's in 8th grade and he's a little bigger, he kind of stepped in between the two and was like, pick on somebody your own size kind of deal, right? And Joey gets in Kai's face a little bit and points his finger in Kai's face, right? And Kai knocks his hand away and says, get your hand out of my face. And the white boy pushes him, right? And then the altercation breaks out. What I want you to see is what happens when the police arrive literally seconds after this fight takes out. You're talking about, I think the whole length of this video is maybe 1 minute long. And we're going to talk about that. So, Dillery, you are more than welcome. And, hit me up if you would like to chat about it. Okay. All right. So here we go.
Oh shit!
That's the white kid on top.
No, bro. Chill. Brian, get out. Brian, leave.
You see the police officers? The police officer sits the white kid on the couch and says, stay. And they've got their knees in the back of the black kid, handcuffing him. This white kid even gets up. The police officers don't even look up.
Fuck. Yo, it's because he's black.
That's a student
Racially
saying
motivated.
So the white kid actually says, yeah, I'm going to play it one more time.
Oh shit!
Now watch, right here, what happens. Look at the female officer, put the white kid on the couch, and watch how the male officer handles the black kid. Watch.
Holy shit! Holy shit! Oh no!
So I want to be clear that when the white kid Joey was interviewed about this, he said it's clear that it was racist. He literally says, I offered to be handcuffed and they told me no. So this is what I really want to stress to white people watching. When Black people talk to you about overt versus covert racism, when we talk to you and we speak about implicit bias and prejudices and the things that you just instinctively do, this is what we're talking about. These officers did not, I mean, you can clearly see the disparity between the two. Casey, I'll have to look it up and tell you, I forget where, New Jersey, I want to say. Don't make me lie right now. I've read a lot of data today, but all you have to do is type in Black kid, Black teen, white teen fight in the mall, and it's the first thing that pops up on Google. Seriously. So I'm saying this to say, who watching this broadcast is familiar with the phrase school to prison pipeline? Who is familiar with that term, school to prison pipeline? Because I want you to, while you're watching that video, I want you to think about the number of officers that are in schools. I want you to think about the number of resource officers that are in schools and how those resource officers may be dealing with students in these types of situations. And can you see that there might be a problem? So I want to share some information. And so the reason why I'm focused on the disciplinary piece of this is because Jaden was suspended from school for fighting a boy who repeatedly kept calling him nigger. Jaden had asked this boy, don't call me nigger anymore. Don't say it anymore. I haven't done anything to you. Leave me alone. Jaden walks away and the boy turns around and mouthed the word nigger to him again. And after 2 weeks of being called nigger, after a month of being cyberbullied on Snapchat, being told to kill himself, Jaden laid hands on this kid who kept calling him racial names. Jaden was suspended. Nothing has happened to the white student at all. I'm not going to go into that whole broadcast. Go back and watch Thursday's broadcast if you want to get into everything that transpired. But Title VI is a regulation around discrimination in discipline for any federally funded program, including schools. Okay, it's a violation of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And right, Casey, Jaden handled business. And here's the thing. Let me just say this. I'm not happy that he fought another student. I am happy that he stood up for himself. I don't know if that makes sense. So that I don't know if people can understand that. I'm not happy that this kid got his tail whooped. I am happy that Jaden stood up for himself and set boundaries in whatever way was going to be most effective, because asking to not be called nigger wasn't working. Y'all get it? Jaden tried asking, please don't call me nigger anymore. I haven't done anything to you, right? And so I don't know if this makes sense. Am I making sense to you all that I cannot find pleasure in him fighting and be glad that he was able to take up for himself? And Doug, that's the entire point. The situation shouldn't have happened because the school had been made aware the day before of the situation. The school knew when it was happening. The school knew what time of day it was happening. The school knew where it was happening. The school knew everything. So if the school, right, Jasmine? I can show you better than I can tell you. So if the school had been doing their due diligence, the principal would have said, hey, to whatever teacher's on bus duty, hey, when the bus comes in, I need y'all to make sure that Jaden gets straight to my office. Don't let him stay in the gym. Don't let him go in the bleachers. I want him to come straight to my office so I can talk to him. If the educators were on their money, but they weren't, right? And the principal was aware. So what if I told you, so in 2014, the Department of Justice and the Department of Education had put together some provisions, and regulation with regard to racial discipline. And so they were federal guidelines is what they were. And they were federal guidelines to ensure that disparities were not, started to come down when it comes to racial discrimination, right? Yeah, exactly, Casey. And that is the case here as well. There's the case here. But I want to be clear. So let me just tell you what happened. So in 2019, Betsy DeVos, y'all do know her, remember her under the Trump administration. She'd been put over education. She actually rescinded those federal guidelines. So there had been studies coming out in 2011, 2012, 2013 referencing racial disparities in discipline. And so in order to address that, in 2014, the DOJ and the Department of Education had put together these federal guidelines to start to try to protect racial discrimination when it comes to discipline in schools. So let me share with you some statistics, and I'm going to give you some links here in just a minute so that you can see the information that I'm giving to you. So first, what they did was they looked at, so this is a national study that was done. The study was conducted by the Center for Civil Rights Remedies at UCLA and the Civil Rights Project and the Learning Policy Institute. There's a legit study where they show you like the age groups that they take, the data that they took it from. It's across all school districts that reported, and it was the majority of them. And get this, in order for your district to be counted in this, there had to be enough students and enough diversity in order for them to actually calculate the data. So this was a very in-depth study. And what they showed was vast discrimination in how discipline is applied. So Black students lost 82 more days of learning than white students did in 2015 to 2016. So for every 100 Black students that are enrolled in school, they lost 103 days due to out of school suspensions. Compare that to 21 days where white students are concerned. I'm just going to let that sink in for a minute. So if you have 100 students, white students lost a total of 21 days, but in the 2015 to 2016 school year, right? School years. And Black students lost 103 days. I'm going to show you some more information because now what they just did is the first study ever to actually show a correlation between this lost time in learning with lost performance. So the greater the gap in discipline discrimination, the greater the gap in achievement on standardized testing. Yeah, Jasmine. So I want to show you a little bit more in depth. So in Missouri, the Black to white discrepancy, in Missouri, Black students lost 162 days more than white students did in out of school suspension. In New Hampshire, Hispanic children lost 75 days more than white children did. And in North Carolina, Native American students lost 102 days more than white students did. The reason why it is a comparison to white is because the white is the standard when it comes to this issue. I'll show you what I mean. Days lost due to out of school suspension, white students, 21 days. This is per 100 enrolled students. Black students, 103 days. Hawaiian Pacific Islander students, 63 days. Native American students, 54 days. Latinx students, 30 days. And special education students, 68 days, which, by the way, if you have a child that is on an IEP or is in special education services in any way, shape, or form, there is a process that they are supposed to they're supposed to go through before they discipline your child to ensure that the issue isn't related to whatever their educational ability is. Y'all got that? So For you folks that are watching that are white, I would like for you to comment when you see these numbers. I would like for you to comment, what do you think? How does it make you feel? And the source of this data comes from the Department of Education, the Office for Civil Rights, and the Civil Rights Data Collection from the years 2015 to 2016. So when you can see that Black children lose 5 times the number of days in out-of-school suspension than white children do, Pacific Islander Hawaiian students lose 3 times the number of days. Native Americans lose almost 3 times the number of days, more than double, right? Share with me how you think these students, how do you think Black children feel going to school? Casey says, I feel pissed off. Ladon says, these should not be happening in any school in the United States. Right. It's absolutely disgusting. Did any of you all know this information prior to this broadcast? And I think this is part of the challenge. So let me just say this. Like, I was in tears. I was in tears when I was reading all the different studies in the articles. I was in tears after I talked to another biracial child today, because here's what this child shared with me. He said, I don't know if I want to speak out publicly. And I said, okay, why is that? And he said, well, I'm scared that they're going to retaliate. And I said, well, what do you mean? You know, what do you mean? And so literally he's scared. Get this, not just that students are going to retaliate. He's scared they're going to retaliate against him in his sport that he plays and in the school. Like, he's literally scared of the adults whose job it is to create an environment that is conducive for his learning. He's scared that the adults are going to target him. So that means this baby walks into school every day feeling that no one is on his back, is on his side. So Ladon, the student that I spoke with last week was at Surgoinsville Middle School. The second student is at a different school, but it is also in Hawkins County. And I'll be interviewing that student and his mom, maybe his dad as well, on Thursday. And this is what had me so upset, because I said to him, the fact that you have to be scared to tell the truth. Guys, this is the same thing. So y'all get that this is no different than the KKK. This is no different than speaking the truth and being punished. Your daughter said the same thing, Jillery. See, and that makes me angry, because children should not be scared to tell the truth. Right? And this is the part. So what somebody else just said, this is all new information for me. This is the point of what I want to do. Okay. So this is so important. And LaShawn, Ladon, let me just say this. Special education is another group as well, because let me just show you this. Let me put this graphic back up. One of the things that's down at the bottom, special education students were suspended out of school 68 days compared to 21. And that's across all races, special education students. So what does that tell you? That tells you that people are not equipped to handle special education students the way that they're supposed to. The comprehension, the complex ability to reason and to think through why something is occurring apparently isn't present for these educators. So Ladon, you may want to message me if your son has an IEP and he has been targeted as well. I have some resources to provide to you. Okay. Uh, okay, so absolutely, Melanie. So when we talk about reforming systems, okay, the education system is a huge part in this. Why do you think it took Brown versus Board of Education? Right? And listen, when they rezone and redistrict our communities, that also impacts where children get to go to school and what type of education they receive. If your schools are funded by the tax dollars just in that community, then more affluent schools are going to have different funding. I want to share something with you from one of the studies as well. And I want to show you the racial gap disparities. And I will tell you, I was and I wasn't surprised. So in this data, you're going to see a bunch of states listed. And these states are ranked for their greatest gap in racial discipline disparities. So the bigger the number, the worse job you're doing. Okay. So you just saw that graphic that said 103 days more, and every state is ranked. So the state of Tennessee, let me just before I put the graphic up, would anyone like to guess out of all 50 states, what number do you think Tennessee came in? Where do you think Tennessee fell? And where do you think Virginia fell? Where do you think Tennessee came in? 1 to 50. One being, well, so listen, wait a minute, let me just say this. Jennifer gets it. Okay, so listen, here's what I mean. The higher the score, the worse job you're doing. The higher the score. So if you're in first place, that means you have the greatest disparity in racial discrimination, in discipline amongst races. So if I flip your numbers, Elmani is saying 1. Teresa says in the top 3. You get it? Now you get what I'm saying? It's weird to try to explain it, but that's what I mean. So if you're number 1, that means you're at the very top. Ethan says 2, Almani says 2, Teresa says 3, Doug says 1st, Anetta says 10 and 9. So let me just show you. Tennessee comes in 7th and Virginia comes in 9th. In Tennessee, in the state of Tennessee, you can see it's the first blue line that I have up here. The difference between black and white children, black children in the state of Tennessee lose 123 days more than white students in out of school suspension at the secondary level. The average for all students is 55. If you look right here, you're going to see white students lose 25 days per 100 students enrolled. Black children lose 149 days per 100 students enrolled. 6 times as many. And special education, 132. Virginia is 118. That's the gap. So black children lose 118 days more per 100 enrolled students than white children do in Virginia. White children lose 38 days. Black children lose 156 days. One of the reasons why I think, Annetta, I'm with you, holy Jesus, she said. So one of the reasons why I think this region does, well, let me just say, a horrible job is because there are so few minorities in the school system. It's like they don't count on it. It's like it doesn't count. So like if you only have 10 minorities in your whole damn school, right? It's really hard to be able to draw those comparisons, because that was one of the things that I noticed in the study. So in the study that I was reading about, there were requirements. The school had to have a certain number of students. They had to have a certain number of black students. They had to have a certain number of white students in order for them to be able to actually draw down on the data. And so, when you live in an area where Black people make up 3% of the population, sometimes you don't even have enough of us for there to be data. Matter of fact, I remember when we were looking at the Department of Health had put out, sorry, y'all. So listen, y'all know I'm a disabled veteran. Y'all know I've had surgeries and stuff. And sometimes when I hurt, I have to move around a lot and switch my legs up. But anyway, so when I was looking at the Department of Health had put out this report based on, like, for the COPA. Y'all remember when I was standing outside of Holston Valley Medical Center for damn near 9 months? So I remember looking at the Department of Health report, and there was an asterisk beside the results, right? When they were breaking it down by race. And I was like, what's this asterisk? And I go down and I scroll down, and it literally says that due to Black people making up less than 5% of the population in the region, they don't even bother to calculate the data. So Black folk back home, they don't even bother to calculate your healthcare outcomes because you make up less than 5% of the population. White people, how would you feel if your government, if your health department said to you, there's not enough of you for us to care enough to calculate your outcomes? Your numbers are insignificant, so we're not going to use the labor and the manpower to even calculate your data. What happens to you is irrelevant. The percentage of you that have heart attacks or strokes or lung disease or diabetes or any of those things, or your maternal mortality rates don't matter. You're like, because you make up less than 5% of the population, you simply don't matter. We're not putting you in this report. White people, you have never not mattered. And do you understand what it is like to be told by your government you don't matter? Do you know what it is like to see numbers like this and to know that your children are being targeted? I know this is a tough spot, but I'm saying it the way that I'm saying it because I want to be clear and I want to be direct and I want you to get it. It's not that Black people hate this country. It is not that we think all white people are prejudiced. It is not that we don't, that we don't, want to have police. It is not that. Do y'all get it? It's not that. It is that if we do not speak up, our babies do this. This is what happens to our babies. So when our babies are disproportionately disciplined, right? And when they're expelled and suspended 3 times more than white students, and when they make up 31% of the school-related arrests, that's how our babies end up in prison. When you have a judge like Donna Scott Davenport in Rutherford County, Tennessee, who put 41% of the juvenile cases that appeared before her court when they were minority children in juvenile detention centers, and nothing happened to her. When Representative Gloria Johnson introduced a resolution to have her removed from her place as a judge, she said, oh, I'm just going to retire this year. I'm just going to resign. I'm just going to retire this year and step down instead of running again for re-election. So what does that mean? If she simply resigns as a judge, she keeps her damn pension. Tell me how I should feel about a white judge who, it has been proven, used a law that did not exist, like it was a fake law, to imprison our children as young as 7, 8, and 9 years old. I did a broadcast about this back in September, November? how are we not supposed to be mad? How are we not supposed to be angry? How are we not supposed to want change? She should be able to see it on my personal page, Almighty. You know, after last week, I was exhausted. Like I was exhausted. Because it is emotionally draining. And yet I desire to be in this space. So I want to be very clear. No one makes me talk about these things. And there are people talking about them, but here's the thing. I don't want to talk about them in a way that hurts, that makes it worse. I do want to be direct. I do want to be authentic. I do want to hold people accountable, right? But okay, so for example, there's a poet, that's how I know him. Michael Harriot is a writer for the Griot. He used to write for the Root. He got a damn, I don't know, 7-figure book deal because he when he talks about white people, he types it WYPIPO, WYPIPO, white people, right? And I have friends that are so pro-black they may be anti-white, and it's a very difficult space to navigate because I am definitively pro-black. I'm also pro-Native American. I'm also pro-Latinx. I'm also pro Hawaiian Pacific Islander. Like I'm pro-BIPOC people, and I'm not anti-white. And sometimes that can be a challenging line to walk. Like if I'm being 100% authentic, sometimes it can be a challenging line. When you see videos like the one that I just showed you, when you see, Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd and, Sean Reed and Deontay Wright and, Atania Jefferson and Sandra Bland and Philando Castile and Eric Garner and Michael Brown and the Jadens. And, when you see it all the time and you're reading reports that our babies are being targeted the way they are and discriminated against, and it is 2022. Y'all, I can literally pick up my phone right now and call my friend in Nigeria and see him. Right? My friend he be in Nigeria and he be in the little marketplace looking at carvings and artwork, and he'd be like, what do you like this? Do you like that? Do you like this? Right? Tell me how I can have a video chat with someone on the other side, right? Like thousands of miles away. And our children are still experiencing racism the way I did 40 years ago in school. Why can we seemingly advance so far in certain issues and in certain things and not in the things that really matter? Because let me tell you something. You're traumatizing our babies. You're traumatizing them. When they walk into college classrooms, they will be carrying the experiences of their middle schools and their elementary schools and their high schools with them. If they join the military and they walk into basic training, they will be carrying those experiences with them. When they walk into boardrooms and conference rooms and corporations and jobs across this country, they will be carrying those experiences with them. The experience of not feeling safe, the experience of having those in positions of authority that are supposed to protect you not doing so, and being scared of them. I'm going to share a video with you. This is from another study that just came out, I believe, last year, and it's the first of its kind. The gentleman who's speaking, I believe, is from Stanford University, but there are other colleagues that he talks about, and this is the first time they have ever looked at the correlation between the disparities in discipline and the disparities in achievement. So I'm going to play this video for you really quickly.
Folks have long known that students of color are suspended at elevated rates relative to white students. Folks have also long known that students of color perform poorer on standardized assessments of achievement relative to white students. What I'm referring to are the racial discipline gap and the so-called racial achievement gap. Now, there's a robust literature dating back several decades that's attempted to shed light on both causes and outcomes of each of these two gaps. However, it really wasn't until recently that folks started talking about these two gaps as potentially related, being related to one another. Now, the most influential work in this space has either been largely conceptual, that is drawing on existing literature to make a theoretical argument for a connection between the racial discipline gap and the racial achievement gap, or it's been very local. That is researchers looking at a relationship between the racial discipline gap and the racial achievement gap within a single school district. So what my co-authors, Joseph Gardella, Ben Fisher, and Chris Curran, and I were interested in was whether a relationship between the racial discipline gap and the racial achievement gap holds at the national level. And so what we found, based on longitudinal data of all U.S. school districts that contain sufficient racial diversity to create reliable estimates of each of those two gaps, was that what was found at the local level and what was argued for on conceptual grounds with respect to Black and white students largely holds at the national level. That is the Black-white achievement gap and the Black-white discipline gap are in fact two sides of the same coin. As the Black-white achievement gap goes up, so too does the Black-white discipline gap. As the Black-white discipline gap goes up, so too does the Black-white achievement gap. Likewise, as each gap gets smaller, so does the other gap. So there are a number of implications for this work. First, the simple finding that the two gaps are related is important to acknowledge, but in particular for what that then means. For one, parents, pay attention to these disparities. If your district isn't meeting the academic needs of students of color, then it likely, if it isn't meeting the academic needs of students of color as well as it does its white students, then it likely has racial discipline problems to boot. Similarly, if your district has racial discipline problems, as evidenced by elevated suspension rates for students of color relative to white students, then it likely isn't meeting the academic needs of its students of color as well. One finding that was particularly surprising for us was that the significant relationship we observed between the Hispanic-white discipline gap and the Hispanic-white achievement gap went away when we controlled for other district and community level differences. What this suggests is that while there is in fact a relationship there, it's not due to those gaps per se being related to one another, but because of other unobserved and observed differences at the district level. What these findings suggest in conjunction with sort of the earlier noted finding that there in fact was a robust association between Black and white students is that the mechanisms connecting the racial discipline gap and the racial achievement gap, for instance, teacher biases, for instance, feeling isolated at school, may be far more salient for Black students than any other racial group.
So that last part is super important. When he says to you that teacher biases and feeling isolated at school are much more likely to exist for Black students than white students, that is significant. I'm trying to put links in here, guys. They look like they're going through, and then it says that there's an error. So I'm hoping that they're going through. The system was giving me issues earlier. So I'm going to keep putting them in here and pray that they're coming through. And then I'll go back and I'll check it on the flip side of this. Okay. which one is this one? And this one's Brookings. So these are here for you. I always try to provide you with resources for you to go back. So if you ask me, Danny, what can we do about this? Right? They're coming through. Great. Perfect. It's so like in my side, they say they've gone through and then it says an error occurred. And so I can't really tell. Okay. So some of the things that I'm going to recommend, I said them earlier in a live, is going to your Board of Education meetings, going to your school board meetings and asking for their, in addition to there being a no bullying policy at school, there ought to be a no racial harassment or discrimination policy at school, right? You would think that these things, should be automatic, but apparently they are not. Go to your county commissioners and ask for them to put a resolution forward to the same effect. We need to be doing things to have our legislators and our school boards and our public servants do things to protect our children. Writing letters to the editor, creating safe spaces for these kids is incredibly important. And, thanks, Debbie. So I'm grateful for you all for watching and for sharing. There are 4 things that I want to be present in every broadcast, both online and in the talk show that we're putting together. There are 4 A's. If you've seen me, you've heard me talk about them lately, right? So one is accountability. I absolutely believe that Hawkins County school system, their administrators, their principals, their teachers, all need to be held accountable for what they are and are not doing where minority students are concerned. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, I always want to be authentic. This space is not easy to navigate. I would be lying to you if I did not say that, it impacts me because I've lived it and breathed it. I know what this feels like. But you know what? That's why I'm so passionate about some of these things, right? It's why, like, I've gone to Standing Rock, so I'm extremely passionate about Native Americans and about protecting the water and, and not destroying their sacred burial grounds for their grandparents to put oil in there, right? When it always leaks. I'm very passionate about that. I was very passionate about ballot health and the NICU because I gave birth at Holston Valley. Anaya gave birth there, and those NICU nurses and that staff saved my grandbaby's life. I'm very passionate about those things. I'm simply passionate about people. I do not believe that corporations, politicians, and public servants should be doing things that cause harm to people. I just don't believe that. I do not believe that profits should come before people. And I believe that we can have profit and we can have healthy capitalism that isn't done at the expense of people. And I believe that we can have conversations in such a way where it might be uncomfortable, right? And it's still respectful enough for us to create understanding. When you see the full picture of what's being done to Black and brown children in the education system, then hopefully you can understand the feelings that come from it. People got upset with me in 2020 when they were, in the streets and tearing shit up, right? And I said this, I personally do not condone violence and destroying property. Like, it's just not my thing. And I can understand how the level of frustration has mounted to such a degree that some people are expressing themselves in that fashion, even if I don't agree with it. And so my hope is that by doing broadcasts like this one and the talk show this year to come, that we can create a conversation where I give you information maybe that you've never seen before, that you haven't heard before, or that enlightens and gives you a better understanding. Because with that understanding, my hope is that it will come empathy. And when we have empathy and we have understanding, then we will begin to have compassion for each other. And that, I believe, is what is necessary. Accountability can feel like offense if you're not ready to own how your decisions are impacting people. And I don't apologize for holding the school system and its administrators and its teachers accountable, because these children deserve to be protected. They absolutely 100% deserve it. Very quickly, those of you guys who know me know that I wear many different hats. I'm a coach. I'm also an artist. I do have several pieces of art that are currently available. If you are interested in art and you would like it, please let me know. There's a post on my regular page where you can see them. I've got some of them over here, as a matter of fact. I also have an Etsy store where I make bracelets, and I created a meditation and mindfulness card deck, right? So I believe that we all have God in us, whoever God is for you, right? I believe that we have divine inner wisdom that helps us, that guides us. I think that it's perfect as when we're babies and when we're kids. And I think life kind of like separates it from us, and we begin to doubt that inner wisdom, that intuition, that sixth sense, that guidance that we all have. We doubt it. So I've created this daily card deck where you literally just shuffle the card and get connected to your inner wisdom. I believe that connection is the cure for everything that ails us. I believe the more connected we are to our creator, our source of everything, whoever that is for you, because I don't judge, right? I don't care if that's God, I don't care if that's Mother Nature, I don't care if that's Allah, Buddha, whoever it is for you. But the more connected we are to that divine piece of ourselves in our lives, the more connected we are to ourselves, and the more connected we are to each other, the more likely we will be patient with each other and understanding of each other and respectful of each other and kind of each other. And the less likely we will be to hurt each other and to harm each other and all of that. So that is the purpose of these broadcasts. That's the purpose of this deck. That's the purpose of everything I do, is connection. So hopefully this was beneficial for you. If you would like to support the talk show, go to thedannycookshow.com. You can read and learn all about it. You can even take a look at the production budget and donate or become a sponsor, whatever works for you, whether you're a business or a person, either way. Like I said before, I appreciate you all for tuning in and being part of the conversation. Here's going to be my ask. My ask is that don't let it stop when I end the broadcast. Have this conversation with your friends and your family members. Have this conversation with people who don't know this information. Have this conversation with other people so that we can all become a little more aware of what each of us is experiencing as people. You know, these are the things that make us who we are. And I think the more we realize that, the better off we are going to be. Okay. So that is it. That's all I've got for you for tonight. Please tune in on Thursday at 8 p.m. Like I said, I will have a second family from Hawkins County here to talk with me about their experiences. If you yourself or you know of anyone that has been targeted in some form or fashion or needs some advocacy work, feel free to shoot me a message and I will do my best to get to you as quickly as possible and see how I might be able to assist. You guys be amazing, be light, and be love. Peace.